Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I got a bunch of news items to get to, some funny stuff, a follow-up on JoJo and his possibly saying my butt been white, my butt been white. And so I missed a part of it that I wanted to say something about. And, I want to talk about Don Lemon sort of defending Tucker Carlson getting harassed in Wyoming. Don Lemon is always just, pure comedy gold. And at the end of the video, I want to talk about the Heartfulness Gathering a little bit. One of my viewers sent me a message and asked a bunch of questions. And I want to answer those questions, or at least talk about some of it here, because I'm thinking maybe other people have similar type of questions and concerns or whatever it is. Somebody who's been doing the Heartfulness system. So I want to get to all that. I'm going to start off with, I guess there's some evidence that various countries, including perhaps England and maybe some of the British viewers can chime in on that, Boris Johnson, are adopting some form of the Chinese credit system. So I'm going to start with that. But first, I just wanted to say, somebody sent me an Instagram message the other day, and it showed a video. It was a link to a video on Instagram that there is an app that a bug travels around a kid, like a sort of semi-realistic looking bug. And it was a young kid, like a 5-year-old kid. And the kid's watching himself on, I don't know, some sort of a screen, right? And he's seeing this bug crawl all around him and eventually go into his nose. And the kid freaks out, and the parents are doing this to their children. They're showing these kids these kind of apps where a bug is, crawling all over the kid, freaking the kid out. And he sees it. These kids young kids, they live in sort of a hypnotic, dreamlike state when they're young. And so seeing something like that, they can't differentiate between what they're seeing and reality. It's amazing how willing people are to show how sucky they are as parents and people and laugh about it and think it's something great, right? Traumatizing their children. I talked about Jimmy Kimmel getting parents to tell their kids they ate their Halloween candy and other things, encouraging the kids to lie. And Jimmy Kimmel had this thing where he was encouraging kids to get embarrassing videos of their father on Father's Day and put them up on social media, and then he would show some of them on his show. Just a degraded nature in which social media is used to damage the already fragile family unit. So this is China's social credit system. My wife sent me this. I guess she had read maybe on Twitter or something that people were saying, or maybe there was some other truther was saying that Boris Johnson is pitching some sort of version of this Chinese social credit system. I'm not sure whether that's true or not. Maybe, again, people from England can talk about this. But, with Joe Biden saying the other day, the presidents of China and Russia talked to him at the G8 saying that they're betting on democracy failing because people aren't going to knuckle under to the agenda that's being forced globally. And so they're going to have to go with autocracy, some sort of dictatorship. And Joe Biden was sort of warning everybody about it. Like, if you guys don't do what we tell you to do, it's going to be a totalitarian system globally. And so, that's already out there. And so how far off is this? So you see in the middle here, everyone starts off with 1,000 points. And so you can either walk up the stairs or fall down this abyss into lower levels, right? And so at 1,000 points, and this is the lowest it can go, 600, and the most that it can go is 1,300, which is interesting, is where you can gain all these types of points. And so the way to rise up is positively influencing one's neighbors, taking care of the elderly members of the family, engaging in charity work, and that can give you these credit scores. Traffic offenses such as drunk driving or jaywalking, illegally protesting against the authorities, not visiting aging parents regularly, that's going to cause you to plummet. And then the way that you work your way back up is, if you're at the bottom at 600, committing a heroic act, having good financial credit history, helping the poor, praising the government, and again, donating blood up there. posting anti-government messages that'll cause you to tumble, spreading rumors on the internet, insincere apologies for crimes committed. I'm just observing this. I'm in the editing process, and I'm saying insincere apologies. What's sincere about this? It's all forced, right? It's a forced system to get you to behave through pressure and fear and temptation and all these things, right? It's not organic. So how are you going to get a sincere apology for the wrongs you've committed that sends you spiraling down one of these trap doors to a lower level? Of course it's not going to be sincere. Participating in anything deemed to be a cult, cheating in online games. And so, these are how their social credit score works. I don't know if that's all of it. There must be a lot more rules in it. But, this is possibly coming to a country near you. So this is some of the European flooding in Belgium. I mean, this is even worse than what I saw in Chennai. I mean, this is, a huge problem. I don't know if they're creating this or it's just an act of nature or God, but this is substantial damage being done. And, and I guess this is widespread across many European countries. I don't know whether they're getting more rainfall or what's happening. Heavy rainfall has wreaked havoc across London, and I guess various countries are experiencing this type of thing. I saw this in Chennai, India, and experienced it. And the damage that's done to these houses, they're never going to be the same. The structural integrity and the mold and the mildew and things, it's not going to be a healthy place to live, no matter how wealthy the house is and the rest of it, right? But this is, and then car damage, electricity, and all these things. I mean, this is going to set everyone back quite a bit, and the quality of their life has just gotten a lot worse. So I covered this. One of my friends on Instagram, a viewer, sent this to me last night. This is Molly Nagel, who works for ABC News, and she was there when JoJo, made his infamous gaffe here, his infamous gaffe. Does immigration need to be in a reconciliation, a pathway for citizenship? Was asked returning to the White House, POTUS. There needs to be a pathway to citizenship. Whether it needs to be an immigration remains to be seen. And then she writes, he appeared to mean reconciliation, so they're not even clear about that. And what she doesn't say is,
what must be what?
She doesn't address what he said there. And a lot of people think he said, my butt's been wiped. One commenter, I pinned that comment, said, Hunter Biden said, my laptop's been wiped. My hard drive's been wiped. And there's a lot of other funny comments. Some people think he said, my butt is white, but there's other, people were hearing different things. But, even Snopes agrees that he's babbling incoherently and nobody knows what he's talking about. And they used to all criticize Trump for doing this, talking to reporters by the helicopters and planes so they can only selectively answer questions. It's a way to, just pretend you don't hear certain questions, or it's like having a press conference and talking about the things you want to talk about.
What must be what?
And just the way he said that, this is a major news story. Networks are neglecting, mainstream media is neglecting their duty to call this incompetent bozo out, right? He's not mentally competent. I mean, they said, my butt been white, my butt been white. It's not, I mean. My butt been white. So, it's just weird. It's a strange thing, And he's, he thinks it's pretty funny. But this reporter doesn't address what else he said, right? And these are the replies. The scary part is people believe he did say my butt's been wiped. Bradford. But she's not addressing. This is what he said after he said my butt's been wiped or whatever he said. And this was the question that was asked. And he didn't even give a clear response here. He appeared to mean reconciliation. But what did he appear to mean before that? You heard it. Do you think he said his butt's been wiped? This guy doesn't get it, right? He's doing an amazing job. We are so lucky to have him and not the other guy anymore. Well, he didn't say my butt's been wiped, but I defy anyone to actually determine what he did say. Well, what do you mean he didn't say that? How do we know he didn't say that, right? For those who focus on the unimportant, there must be what? End of story. If you heard anything else, clean your ears. Son of Fritz laying it down. Who asked a question under those noise conditions? I applaud him for answering it, and he did. He literally dimensions the answer, states my butt's been wiped, and everyone's going to see it through their subjective eyes. But the bottom line is the guy is not getting it done.
What must be what?
That weird way, his inflection, the way he's talking quickly, not clearly or coherently, is the reason why there's a problem. Not because people are misinterpreting it, not because people hear whatever they hear, because he doesn't speak clearly. He's talking in front of the helicopter, he's joking around, and his jokes suck, and he's lost mentally. And they installed a guy, based in their demonization of Trump and hiding this guy away when everybody knew he was a gaffe magnet, a nightmare, a liar, a career politician, and somebody that was showing severe signs of dementia. And they forced him upon everybody. And now you get this, right? And so don't blame anybody else. This is the media. This is the Democratic Party. This is, everybody that forced this guy and gave him a job that he's clearly not up for. So this is Celine Dion. And one of my friends sent me this. And one of her fans is going to sing to her. And watch Celine, her own song, Celine's song. And I've talked about Celine ghouling it up, like she and Pete Davidson were the OGs, the sort of original ghouls.
You in my arms and never let go. I surrender. You in my
So the girl starts,
you in my arms
and she tells her don't go, and she's listening to it.
and never let go.
And then
I surrender.
Put the window up, and that's and she drives away, and it's I'm not sure if she put the window up or her people did, but either way, it's a beautiful moment. Elon Musk, population collapse is potentially the greatest risk to the future of civilization. U.S. population growth, an economic driver, grinds to a halt. So this is an article in the Wall Street Journal, and it says, America's weak population growth, already held back by a decade-long fertility slump, is dropping closer to zero because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so you're going to see this. Population growth globally is going to be on the decline. That's one of the reasons that they're doing this, and it's going to have, obviously lots of effects. But we've had consistent population growth, not consistent in the sense that it has spiked in recent years, but it's been on the rise for the past 500 years. Human population has grown every year for the past 500 years, and now it's going to go the other way, and that is, it needs to happen, but it's going to create a lot of havoc in terms of our civilization and all the rest of it, especially in countries like the United States. In some countries, there's just too many people that aren't contributing and are living in extreme poverty. So when their populations decline, it'll be a positive thing for the countries. But in Europe and America, when the populations decline, there isn't enough people to do the jobs or whatever it might be, and then you're going to see it's going to have a global effect, right? Of course, they're going to roll out a new economic system to deal with that, but the population decline is definitely a part of that, right? The global reset. So CNN, it says, Don Lemon defends Tucker Carlson after confrontation with stranger. He doesn't really defend him, but there's a reason why they want people to believe that he does.
Hey everyone, sit down and watch this, all right? Because I'd never thought I would be in this position to maybe somehow have to defend Tucker Carlson, but we'll see where this goes. I have mixed emotions about this one.
He got mixed feelings about this one, Don Lemon. He's such a complex person, right? He doesn't know how to feel about this.
Fox propaganda host Tucker Carlson confronted in a Montana fishing shop.
Fox propaganda host Tucker Carlson, like he's on CNN, and he's horrible, right? And he thinks he's so much better than Tucker Carlson and Fox.
Called the worst human being known to man. Dan Bailey is the guy's name, posting his confrontation with the TV host to his Instagram. And now watch what happened.
Don't even get my. I don't care, man. Dude, you are the worst human being known to mankind. I want you to know that what you have done to this state, to the United States, to everything else in this world. I don't care that your daughter's here. What you
I covered this yesterday, and I didn't know he said, my daughter's here, Tucker Carlson, right? So he's with his kids. And this dude, you know, it looks kind of faked and staged, or this guy's just, you know, trying to get viewers on Instagram. I mean, he saw a moment and he took it, which once, you know, they promote this, which they're doing here on CNN, and even Fox put out a statement, once they promote this and people go to this guy's Instagram account, then it's going to encourage other people to do it. It's a way for quick fame to go up to one of these people and deliver something like this, criticism, and then people will come and watch you on social media, which everybody desires, because this guy doesn't have anything to say. Like, he's not smart, and his points here are ridiculous to Tucker Carlson, right?
have done to people's families, what you have done to everybody else in this son. Don't come, son. One.
Okay, so Fox News reacting in a statement saying ambushing Tucker Carlson while he is in a store with his family is totally inexcusable. No public figure should be accosted regardless of their political persuasion or beliefs simply due to the intolerance of another point of view.
So I'm going to get to Simone Biles. I was making this video already, and then it came out that she quit. You know, she didn't perform in the Olympics, not because she was physically hurt, because of mental issues, which I felt I needed to comment on, right? But this whole thing, you know, everything seems more and more fake. Like, it's hard for me to believe that things are organic. Like, this whole story looks fake. You know, the reaction, Fox News and Don Lemon's, the Simone Biles thing. It's harder for me to believe that things are actually really happening because everything looks completely staged and contrived in some way, right?
Well, the store where it happened is called Dan Bailey's Outdoor Company. It issued a public statement saying even though that they have the same name, they share no affiliation with Dan Bailey in the video. Again, it was just a coincidence. It's the same name. And that they treat every customer equally and respectfully. Let's discuss now. CNN political commentators Anna Navarro and Scott Jennings both here. Good evening to both of you. Thank you so much. Let me tell you this. I don't like it. I don't like it when people do that because I would not want it to happen to me. Because I would not want it to happen to me. Because I would not want it to happen to me.
Because it's all about you, Don. You know, I wouldn't want something like this to happen to me, so I'm against it.
Because I would not want it to happen to me. But I have mixed emotions because Tucker has done this to people before. Tucker said some really nasty and silly things about me, and the next day, there were paparazzi in front of my house.
It's amazing how dumb Don Lemon is, like how he's not a journalist. I mean, it's bad on CNN, but Don Lemon takes it to a new level. Because he says, well, I'm against this, but Tucker's done this to me before. He said mean things to me, and then other people showed up to take pictures of Don Lemon's, right, in front of his house. That's not Tucker doing bad things to you. You guys all cover people in a negative way. You guys all say things about, think about all the things they said about Trump and they say about each other. And that doesn't mean now if Tucker Carlson encouraged people to show up at Don Lemon's house and do this to him, that's something different, right? And it's the behavior that needs to be condemned. The behavior is wrong no matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter who's getting it done to them. You're condemning a behavior. You know, I got into it or some, truther made a negative video about me and encouraged his followers in a disingenuous way to come harass me, right? And I had a migraine headache. It came on a bad day, and there was like 300 comments, and we had shared viewership. So some of my viewers were like, being hostile and turning on me because this guy said some things that weren't factually accurate, encouraged him to spam me and, troll me in some way. And I said, that's just, a bitchy behavior. That's a weak-ass behavior. Like, I don't send people towards somebody to troll them and fight my battles for me. I mean, it's just negative. In fact, I discourage it. I don't think it's a positive behavior. It's a negative behavior. Just because somebody may deserve it in your mind, you don't encourage negative behaviors when you're a person in front of people on some levels of the media, right? And so he's like, well, I don't want this to happen to me, so I'm against it. But Tucker Carlson said mean things to me that one time, So I don't know how I feel about it. Well, you do. You're against the behavior. You just dislike Tucker Carlson, right? But you can't say that because you don't have, like, the mental capacity to really understand how to express this.
Hiding, taking pictures. So I don't want it to happen to anyone. I don't want it to happen to Tucker. But when you do things like that, I don't know. I'm just saying that's the real deal. That's how I feel about it.
That's not the real deal. That's not clear at all. That's how I feel about it. No, you're not clear at all. I don't want it to happen to me. I don't think it's a good behavior. But Tucker Carlson, no, that's not. That's not the real deal, and that's not how you feel about it. You're saying that you don't know what to think, right? And so this is classic Don Lemons.
Anna, listen, all of us, we're all on TV. We've been approached. We hear good things. We hear bad things from people. We don't even know who they are. It's part of the gig. Don't you think this went a little too far, though?
I actually thought the guy who confronted him was quite polite, was not shouting, was not violent, was not aggressive in any way.
Just by going up to somebody and telling them they're the worst person in the world in front of their family, that's aggressive, right? This is a confrontation. It's aggressive. Again, there's just the level of just dumminess on CNN. It's aggressive. This is an aggressive act, right?
He expressed his opinion in the same way that Tucker Carlson expresses his opinion on a nightly basis on a much larger platform.
No, because Tucker Carlson doesn't do it to people's faces unless it's a guest, and the guest comes on the show willingly, knowing that Tucker Carlson is going to be against him. So it's not the same behavior. I talk about that here. When you go and confront somebody personally, and, it's not some horrible thing. People get into confrontations like this every day. Strangers will talk smack to each other without even knowing anything about each other. It's not like some horrible thing, right, that happened to Tucker Carlson. The behavior's not cool, though, and it's not, a positive behavior, but it's not the same thing. What this guy did to Tucker Carlson is different than what Tucker Carlson does on a TV show. Because this guy could criticize Tucker Carlson on Instagram, on social media, and that's different than going to Tucker Carlson in front of his family and call him like the worst person in the world, right?
Listen, Don, I've seen videos like this about Chris Cuomo when his kids are in tow. This has happened to me. It happened to me at a fresh market in Coconut Grove in Miami. There was this lady stalking me. I thought she wanted a selfie. No, she wanted to insult me for not for loathing Trump.
But I don't think that should happen to you, Ann. I don't think that should happen to Chris. I don't think it should happen to me or Scott.
Okay, well, Don, I also don't think there should be hurricanes or there should be COVID. But crap happens, okay? We get well remunerated for giving our opinion, and that comes with good and that comes with bad. So put on your big boy pants or your big girl pants and get on with life.
So this is a great way to segue into Simone Biles' quitting thing, right? Put on your big boy pants or big girl pants and get on with life, right? Well, here's the thing. Chris Cuomo was confronted. Remember the guy called him Fredo? And Chris Cuomo went off and wanted to fight the guy and then got all crazy, right? And then Fox News and MSNBC, Rachel Maddow and Sean Hannity defended Chris Cuomo, and said that this shouldn't happen, with no qualifiers or no things like Don Lemon just did. And so Don Lemon was on the hook to defend Tucker Carlson because they're all, trying to say they're not encouraging this. This other clown is against what happened, against what the guy did. But, you must have to like fail an IQ test to get on CNN, because they don't get even to the most important point about this is the guy wanted to grow his social media account on Instagram. He knew if you see a celebrity and you do something like this, you're going to get national exposure in terms of your social media presence. And that's what this guy wanted. You can see it, right? And none of them say that. I mean, these are supposed to be like professional journalists and pundits, and they don't come up with just the basic point. All right, let's move over to Simone Biles. So I'm happy about this. There's no, I mean, I'm glad the Olympics is collapsing the way it is, and it's just a disaster. I've watched some of it, and it's just way more sucky. I can't imagine people are into it as much as they usually are. And then this happened, which is even better. Simone Biles withdraws from the team final. U.S. women win silver in gymnastics. The reason is because of mental issues. And so now it's come out that it's not a physical injury. Now, Simone Biles was probably the biggest star for the United States in the Olympics because most of the big names like Michael Phelps and people who were there from Olympics to Olympics are no longer there. They got a lot of new faces, and Simone Biles is a historic figure. She's called the GOAT in the gymnast world. So her dropping out is like the greatest, the best thing. And so this mental issue thing, now there's a lot of pressure in sports. We know that, right? And the way that sports is, it's no longer fun. Like what's fun about sports is when you do like pickup games and, it's competitive, but it isn't something where you're neglecting other parts of your life so you can train and do things on a physical level, which happens in professional sports, where you have to put everything into the sport to succeed, right? And I think that's just sucked the fun and life out of it. It's got more and more competitive, more and more money, more and more technology. And so to be a high-level athlete, you have to be in training and focused on this aspect of your life, neglecting other things. And in the gymnast world, especially these women gymnasts on the balance beam, my wife and I were talking about this. It stresses me out. She was saying it stresses her out to watch these young women flip around on this beam that if they miss, they're going to hit the beam. It's like a concussion waiting to happen. To me, it's one of the most stressful sporting events, right? The whole gymnastic thing. And so, it's hard on their body. So, and so for me, I don't care that she quit. But what she's doing here is quitting. Let's make no mistake about it. Let's listen to what they have to say here.
And Craig, what a shocking morning it was. I mean, I don't know anybody who could have seen this thing coming. The women's team final turned on its head after Simone Biles withdrew.
Yeah, it was a stunner. No one saw it coming. This is not how we thought this.
No one saw it coming.
Of course, we'll see how it all unfolded on primetime tonight on NBC.
So this is important. They're going to make a big deal about this, and they'll get a lot of viewership watching her quit. So it isn't like they're going to lose out. But on an overall basis, one of the things that people tune into is see the stars, in this case of the Olympics. NBC is taking a beating on the ratings. I just know it because it's almost unwatchable. I mean, I'm watching it as wow, the spectacle of the failure, not having crowds there and all of it. And it's a year late and it's just a downer. Any of you who have tuned in know what I'm talking about. And so with the Olympics, what they do is they build up these stars and you don't see them for 4 years. Nobody tunes in. Maybe, they watch the qualifying Olympic stuff ahead of time, and then they have to develop these profiles, and you have to learn to care about these people and their personal stories. And so with all of these perennial athletes no longer going to be there, Usain Bolt was a big, star in the sport, in track and field, and Michael Phelps and a lot of these other people. And so it's a bunch of mostly new people, and Simone Biles is one of the, big names. She's the biggest name. She's the face of the American, Olympic team. And so NBC will get more ratings because this happened. But for the most part, when they sign contracts with these different sports leagues, they expect the best players to play. And they can say whatever they want and try to be supportive because it's a whole agenda. They're obviously pushing this agenda. This thing looks kind of fake. They can't be happy about this, right? You can't have, people quitting high-end, high-paid athletes that a big part of it is the TV contracts. And people go to tune in, and they're like, yeah, the guy's quitting tonight. He's upset. He feels stressed out. He's not going to play. That's not the way the sports empire was built.
Simone Biles withdrawing from the competition in a stunner. And she confirmed to NBC Sports' Andrea Joyce just moments after the competition that it was not a physical injury that kept her out of the competition tonight. She said, I feel fine physically. It's more mental. It has to do with something internal. And then just moments ago, Hoda,
Is this breaking news, Hoda?
You sat down with Simone and the team.
Yeah, it was really something. I mean, I have to say, Savannah, it was so weird because everybody is in such great spirits, which really speaks to the essence of this.
They're in great spirits. Michael Jordan of gymnastics just quit on the team at the biggest moment, and they're psyched about it.
This team. And just to recap, in case people are getting up and going like, what happened? Simone Biles started off on her first event. It was the vault. Everyone was watching her. She did a flip, and it looked like she landed in a funky way. And I wasn't sure, did she hurt her ankle or was she just disappointed with her vault? We couldn't tell. She grabbed her sweats. She went off with a trainer. She came back a few minutes later, spoke to her team, and said she was withdrawing from this competition.
Quitting.
I mean, it left her team reeling. Simone said they were crying, in fact, because they were like, what are we going to do now? Well, you know what they
You know what happens.
did. They stepped up to the plate, and they got a silver medal, which was pretty incredible. And so
Considering they were favored for the gold.
Simone turned into the team coach / cheerleader. It was incredible. So
It was just incredible.
as I was waiting for them to come through the mix zone, which is after they play, the anthem of Russia, who won, they came walking through, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I didn't know. I said, are they going to be upset? Are they going to be happy? What's going to be the tone? Well, you take a judge for yourself. Take a look.
That's right, Hoda. I will take a judge for myself. Everyone take a judge for yourself. Pick one. Any judge. Take one for yourself. People's Court. Judge Wapner.
We love you.
Thank you.
I just have to say, I was kind of shocked in the audience. I was watching you on that first vault. I wasn't sure if you were wincing because you were in pain or you're wincing because something happened. Or first, just tell me you're okay.
Yes, I'm okay. Just super frustrated how the night played out, but
She's super frustrated, right? She's super frustrated. Now, I have my negative feelings about sports, the way that it has gotten just hyper competitive, and the level of money and corruption and all the things that are, in sports, and obsession with it and things like this, and obsession with winning. It puts a person out of balance. And everything I've said earlier about women's gymnastics, but the celebrating of quitting, of course there's pressure, right? There's, she's a multi-millionaire. Her net worth is like $10 million. And she's made a fortune off of endorsements. And she beat out other girls to compete for the American team, right? And so there is somebody or multiple girls at home that would have been a part of this, right? Or one other one that would have been in this spot that would have competed, that wouldn't have quit. Right? You understand this? Because of stress and pressure or whatever it was. And now this has become popular in sports. It happened with Naomi Osaka. I covered that. And the celebration of this, when America has built itself at being hyper-competitive. America is supposed to be about individualism and competition and winning competition and celebrating competition. And the worst thing you can be is a quitter. You know, they talk about Scottie Pippen quitting on his team, and that was a big deal in Michael Jordan's The Last Dance documentary. And Scottie Pippen is still trying to, rewrite that narrative for giving up on his team because he didn't get a final shot one of the years that the year that Michael Jordan left. And this, idea of being a quitter, the worst thing you can do in sports is quit on your team. And, now they're saying, well, if you're stressed out, well, you can do it, right? That's what they're trying to reverse what they've been saying all along. They're the ones who made it bad, like the media and, the culture that's there. And they're trying to reverse this thing, but you're getting millions of dollars in endorsements and you're taking somebody else's spot that wanted to compete. So it's not okay to do this, right? It's about competition. It's about rising to the challenge. And if you're out there and you can physically be out there, you're supposed to be out there. Not because I say so, because I don't care, right? I'm happy about this. I was happy when Trump got elected because it destroyed the presidency, right? I mean, I'm happy about things that expose the underbelly of America because we're constantly, we got this, you're number one and all this, patriotic stuff about America. I'm happy when the truth comes out. And gymnastics isn't the most important thing. And this Olympics sucks, right? So I'm happy about this. But this isn't, what American life in sports is supposed to be about. Yeah, then make it just a fun thing. Take the money out of it, get a job and train on the side, which many of these Olympic athletes have to do because they compete in some abstract sport. And so they have to work and support themselves with another job and train on the side. I mean, many of these athletes don't get the benefit of, getting money and being supported in there. They don't get endorsements and things like this. And so to go out and quit because you have mental issues, then you shouldn't have went in the first place, right? Especially after they have 4 different moves, routines and things that are named after her. She's considered the greatest Olympic gymnast of all time, and now they're celebrating quitting. Oh, it's a good thing to quit. Is it? Well, it just shows you where the apocalaughsnow, because as soon as quitting is celebrated, then America is they're paying you not to go do your job. They're paying you not to grow food, and quitting is a good thing. And speaking of emotional breakdowns, right? This guy, Adam Kinzinger, who's a Republican from Illinois, is going to have a breakdown over January 6th and Republicans' treatment of this event, his colleagues.
Quite as emotional for me as it has been. I've talked to a number of you and gotten to know you. I think it's important to tell you right now, though. You guys may, individually feel a little broken. You guys all talk about the effects you have to deal with, and, you talk about the impact of that day. But you guys won. You guys held. Democracies are not defined by our bad days. We're defined by how we come back from bad days.
So again, celebration, do you really have to cry? I mean, this is your job and you're supposed to be a politician. You're supposed to be a leader. This is something that news anchors are doing now, breaking down and crying. And I'm not saying, weeping is a good thing, and I'm not saying to bottle up your emotions, but doing it on a performance level, right? The celebration of the broken.
How we take accountability for that. And for all the overheated rhetoric surrounding this committee, our mission is very simple. It's to find the truth, and it's to ensure accountability. Like most Americans, I'm frustrated that 6 months after a deadly insurrection breached the United States Capitol for several hours on live television, we still don't know exactly what happened. Why? Because many in my party have treated this as just another partisan fight.
So, there is now this obsession with quitting because of mental issues, giving into stress, giving into fear, whatever it is. They're pushing this. And it's a complete reversal of everything we know as what used to be the American culture, which I had a problem with before. I thought it was fake. So it isn't like I'm so offended here. I like these two things. I like this guy crying because, I get to, make fun of it and talk about it, and it's a sign of the apocalypse. But this guy crying, and he's a congressman, and I've been showing you clips of MSNBC and even Hoda and CNN reporters crying, and it seems staged. I mean, all of them seemed like they were faking, and they were told, okay, we're supposed to cry now. And again, I'm not opposed to emotions and crying and, the heartfulness system that I do, which is to be in touch with your feelings. And one of the things that I realized when I did the heartfulness system was about being soft and having a soft heart. My brother, who also does a system, was this, tough guy who was a bouncer, and he, fought in Vietnam and just, had this tough mentality. And, I played sports and was an athlete. And being called soft, you were supposed to fight the guy that called you soft. You're supposed to have a killer instinct and be hard and all these things. You remember this in terms of, big events where players played hurt. Remember, so many years ago, there was a gymnast, I forget her name, please don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. But she was doing a vault, and America wanted to win their first gold medal, and she did this vault on a hurt ankle, and she landed on only one foot, and and the coach carried her off, this big, coach from Romania or something that's now an American, and he carried her off. Remember that moment? And then there was the time that Curt Schilling, when the Red Sox were going to come back and win a World Series after years of being the Red Sox, right? And Curt Schilling had to get a suture in his ankle, and then there was this blood stain on his sock. They put a suture to hold his tendon in place so he can finish pitching. And there was this huge, story behind it, how tough Curt Schilling was. And I watched a basketball game. It was game 6 of a 7-game series, and the Detroit Pistons were 1 game away from winning against the Lakers, I believe. And Isaiah Thomas fractured his foot. And he knew he couldn't play. He wasn't going to be able to play after it swelled up. He knew that he just had to tough it out. And he scored some crazy amount, 25 points in the fourth quarter. And they lost by 2. And then the Lakers went and won the other game, and they lost the series. And so that's been the American culture, not to be soft, have the killer instinct. And if you're hurt and you can play, you play. There's no idea of you quitting because of emotional reasons or mental reasons, or you can't deal with the stress. That's not the American way. You think about all these, think about all the movies you've seen where the person disarms the bomb with 1 second left, right? The door's closing and the guy, Indiana Jones, slides under the door just in time. Whatever it is, right? The last second shot, the clutch thing that happens in a movie where the thing explodes or whatever happens, they jump out of the way just in time, right? It's just pushed to the very last second, and then the person comes through and performs. And that's what Americans are supposed to do. That's what America's about, being clutch, not choking, and getting in there and getting it done, right? And somebody who doesn't do that, who Bill Buckner, the Boston Red Sox first baseman. The only reason I know his name because of his failure. He was a consistent player, the veteran that played for years. And he got a routine ground ball in the World Series against the Mets that went through his legs. And the Red Sox lose the series. And the guy played for the Red Sox for years. And he got so many threats and hostility, nothing way worse than this Tucker Carlson thing, that he had to move, right? It took years before the Red Sox fans would forgive this guy. And the media in general. I mean, think about the way the media comes down on somebody who fails, and certainly anybody who quits, and now quitting is being celebrated. Now, like I said, when I started doing the heartfulness meditation, And I realized the killer instinct and this competition way wasn't a spiritual way. It isn't the purpose of the soul, and the aggressive nature of, the competition and individualism that is pitched in America is something that, I never felt comfortable about. So it's not like I'm like, oh, this is horrible, and, the other way was so great. But now they're clearly pushing this idea with Naomi Osaka, and now Simone Biles is even a bigger story, where you don't have to show up for your job. You can just quit, right? You don't have to do it. I mean, people are getting paid now not to go to work and not to grow food like farmers, and just the way the American way is going, and they're reversing everything that America has stood for. And I'm not saying America was great before, but quitting isn't better, right? And emotional issues and things like this, everybody has to deal with stress and the rest of it. And, you're waiting 4 years to be in the Olympics, and there's other people that want that spot. There's other gymnasts that want to be on that team, and your teammates are counting on you, and you get upset. You just say, I'm not doing it. I'm too stressed out. That's simply not the American way, and they're now taking down America on every level, like, piece by piece, crying reporters and crying congressmen and just all of it, like all of the cultural things and the way America has been successful. And in the future, I mean, this is the kind of stuff you can do when you got grocery stores full of food and all the things that Americans feel like they're entitled to, internet and air conditioning and things like that. But when you have to go and survive and grow food and do things, I was talking to my kids about this, you got to go in and do it. You think about the number of times. I mean, I've had migraine headaches, and I make videos here and, whatever it is, right? I mean, again, some days you're just supposed to take off. Some days you need to rest. Some days, there's things that you have to do in life. But in terms of playing hurt and things and pushing through things, you have to learn to do those. And especially when it's a survival type of situation, which America is going to face in the future. And so although, I'm not a person that's like, oh, the competitive nature in sports and all those things are great. I remember because I played basketball competitively, and, I had talent, and I hope to do more with it than I did. But if I had been more successful in basketball, I would have put a lot of my life's energy into that, and I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. I've seen these guys. I went to the Basketball Hall of Fame. It was near my house in Connecticut, in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I saw all these legendary basketball players, and they were like in wheelchairs or walking with canes, and their hands were all messed up. They have these, their knuckles, and the way that, I mean, they were just completely physically broken, and they looked like dead inside. They looked like they were hobbling in, and some of these guys were around my age now. And I was like, wow, if you put all your life's energy, your jing, your prana into sports, you don't have enough for the back end of your life, which is much more important in terms of your spiritual evolution. So I'm glad that I only put as much energy as I did, because you don't want to use up all your life force when you're young. And that's what happens with these people who are in these hyper-competitive situations. But that's not what's happening here with this agenda. They're just taking down the American culture piece by piece. If you understand the amount of sacrifice, the physical injuries and the pain and suffering and the sacrifice of the people around you and the coaches and all these various components of this, whatever it is, a team, and the money that's behind it and the TV contracts and all the fans that are, they're waiting for this moment every 4 years, especially the patriotism aspect of it, that you're expected to perform, right? That everybody expects you to do your job. They're counting on it. And if there's a physical injury, sure, people sort of understand that. But they're waiting for this. They're anticipating it, right? They're waiting for their hero to conquer and win, right? Defeat Thanos or the supervillain, right? That's what they're used to. And when you just say, hey, I don't feel up to it emotionally and mentally, that isn't the culture that they've built. And they're taking down the world culture. That's what's happening, especially the American culture, which has a must-win attitude. And to segue into the heartfulness system, I want to talk about the gathering. That there is a softness, and there is a softness of heart, which is, a beautiful thing. And being compassionate, and instead of being individualistic and competitive, being sacrificing and doing for others, and mostly, you're doing your tasks for your love of God and your spiritual pursuit, and you're sacrificing, some case, your material needs for your spiritual journey. And it's, wonderful principles, but there's also an element to it. Babaji, the second master of the system, said he wanted people who did the system to have the spirit of the Spartans. You come back with the shield or on the shield, right? The Spartans were these legendary warriors, but not in a warlike sense, but in a spiritual warrior type of mentality. And you have to show up, right? There's no quitting. I mean, if God wants you to rest, you have to rest, right? But if you can perform, you should perform. You fight through the issues, whatever it is, to do with spirituality and your spiritual growth and the rest of it. And so there was this gathering, an online gathering for Master Charji, the third master of the system, and these sittings were wonderful. And at the end of the gathering, Daji said that he got a message from Babaji, the second master of the system, somebody who died in 1983, but he had given all these channeled messages to this French woman, and Daji is now receiving these messages. Master Charji, the third master, he was great at pretty much everything. He was just a very competent human on every level, and a competent spiritual master, just somebody, and I'm using the word competent as like very few people are good at being a human being on all levels or just one level, and certainly a spiritual master, but he was just great at everything. But he didn't develop the ability, didn't have the ability to be a medium, and so there's this French woman who took all these messages, but now Daji is receiving these messages, which is a good thing, and he said that Babaji was really happy with the progress of the heartfulness system, that there's all these new people joining. He can see the progress people are making individually, that their hearts are moving, their souls are moving on their yatra and things like this. And spiritually, there's been progress, and he says that people in the mission themselves are getting along better. And Daji had just said that he had given up on harmony between members because it's just it's been really difficult, but Babaji says he's happy with that. So that was, nice to hear, and I, positive in a way. I wasn't feeling so positive about certain things that I saw happening in the heartfulness system. Not to do with the system itself, the transmission and cleaning and the sittings have always been wonderful, and the reasons that I do the heartfulness system have only gotten better. And so, those things have always been great. But in terms of the members of the system, there's a lack of what I consider, a sense of what's going on, considering the predictions and prophecies. There's a lack of preparedness, and that's always been the case, because there is these prophecies and predictions, and most people want to have a sense of what's happening in the future. And even back in the 50s, Babaji talked about a new civilization built on the bones and ashes of the current civilization. He talked about the American system being on the verge of paupery, and that's back in the 50s, that paupery, right, poor, where America was going to become poor in, a major way. And that was one of the predictions, one of the prophecies. And some of these other things, having that inside information, you can prepare and do things with it, right? And so my family and I started to live on a homestead and, prepare my children for the way the world was going to be in the future. And we received a lot of criticism from other members and, things like that. But now, with everything that's going on, I would hope there would be more effort, especially in America, because in India they're set. They have these big ashrams that are all going to be safe havens for the future. And they have food, like growing in the ashrams. They feed people with the food in the ashrams. The big one in Hyderabad has these massive gardens and fields of rice and water storage. And they've transformed it into, it was just this desert field, and they've transformed it into this oasis. It's beautiful. But in America, there's nothing like that, right? And I would hope that people would come together and realize, see the writing on the wall, and, embrace these teachings that was given within the system. But that hasn't happened. And, I'm not bummed about it. I mean, I'm bummed, but I'm not in a personal way. I used to take it personally about, 8 years ago maybe, but now I'm just fine. It's okay. Whatever, right? Just let it happen. But it's something that I felt. But, Babaji see things on a different level, a spiritual level, and I recognize my limitations and things. And so, if things are going great, great. Even though it doesn't look like that, even though it looks like our society's crumbling on one level, I mean, that's a part of the plan, that the old system has to be destroyed before something better and new can come out of it. But there needs to be some preparation and, adjustments on a spiritual level, certainly, but also on a material level for this time where it's going to be hard. And I'd like to see, some movement in that direction, because pretty soon it's going to be harder to prepare. Once you see widespread collapse of the food system and the economic system and the power system, and it's not as easy to get things or do things. I mean, the best time to plant a tree is 50 years ago, right? The best time to plant a fruit tree is 50 years ago. And so if you wait on these things, then the stuff isn't going to be ready when you need it and when future generations need it. And so, I'd like to see more of that, but we'll see what happens. So I got some questions from one of the practitioners of the Heartfulness system, somebody who says that they've been doing it for a year. And there was, I felt like I should respond in a public way to some of the person's concerns, because I figured other people who are doing the Heartfulness system might benefit from my responses, because they might be struggling with the system. And so the person was frustrated with the preceptor not being able to answer the person's questions, right? Because, the person has concern about some of their, their spiritual condition. The person worried that they have some sort of a gross soul, right? Which is something that many people in the Heartfulness system go through because of the spiritual cleaning and some samskaras and having a gross condition. And, that shouldn't be there. Like, it has to be talked about. Babaji once said, there is a contagium of grossness in the Heartfulness system, meaning people are obsessed with grossness. And Master Charji said, people are coming up to me, clean me. I'm gross, clean me, right? Because spiritual grossness is cleaned out of people's hearts. These samskaras, these past behaviors. And you shouldn't worry about it, right? I mean, your condition is what it is, because using your mental force to create more grossness, which is, if you're obsessed with it, if you're thinking about grossness all the time, then you're creating more grossness. Going back, to that other video I made earlier today, that I didn't say Jesus was a brand, because somebody didn't understand what I said in my previous comment video, where somebody was, telling me I was in a cult or whatever, some Christian, and I talked about them following a brand of Jesus and not the real Jesus. So you can check out that video, because it goes with what I'm saying here. These things are intertwined. But in terms of this idea of using your mental force, I talked about that in the video, that when it's said in the Bible, God made man in his own image, right? And what that means is, what I understand to mean, in terms of the truth of that, is your heart, your soul, and your ability to manifest things with your mental force. Our minds, our ability to manifest things, our ability to create things, is coming from an identical thought force, very similar to God's original thought that created the universe. And so if you're focused on negativity and thinking you're gross and thinking you're not worthy, or, worrying and all these things, you're just making it harder on yourself and everybody else. And that's why Babaji and the masters of the Heartfulness system word things in a more positive way, because they don't want people dwelling on the negative, right? And it's everything is to move in a positive direction. Use your thought force to create a better you, a better version of you in the future. Remember God. Practice constant remembrance in these things, which is, to bring God into your moment-to-moment decision-making, and your activities, think that you and God are doing things together, right? That it's God and not you that is, or the master in this case in the heartfulness system, that's performing your daily tasks and things. I mean, read about constant remembrance, because that stops you from creating new samskaras and new grossness, with this idea that you're doing your things for God and your duty and things to God and things like that. And just having this general attitude, you don't create more impressions and samskaras and do things that are, don't do things that are wrong, like live a good life, right? Don't purposely lie and do things that are the wrong thing to do. Don't indulge in things that are unhealthy and create impressions that that make you feel bad. Don't play, 12 hours of video games a day, or, do graphic stuff and do drugs and, watch graphic things, graphic porn and graphic violence and things. If you feel like it's leaving an impression, don't do gross things, right? Live a clean life. You know what to do. Like, this is what the heartfulness system isn't about, you being validated by the preceptors or me or even the master of the system, that they say, hey, you're doing a great job. You have a relationship with God, and it takes a while to cultivate that relationship, but that's part of it. And God is telling you what you need to do and what you shouldn't do, and internally. It's internalizing your existence. Preceptors and trainers are not, these people that give the sittings are not necessarily more evolved than you. Some of them have negative, not negative, but not great personalities. And many of them are saints and wonderful people. I mean, Daji was people's preceptor. People who lived in New York went to Daji's house, and, he was always a great abhyasi, always a great practitioner, aspirant, spiritual aspirant of the system. And I know people who Daji was their preceptor. Kamlesh Patel was their preceptor, right? Master Charji and Daji, Kamlesh Patel, were both preceptors and regular practitioners of the system. And people would go to their house and they would be the ones giving them sittings, and they would express their knowledge. I mean, that book, Heartfulness Way, was written with Joshua Pollack, who used to work for Kamlesh at Daji at a pharmacy in New York City. And he went to Daji's house, said his house was like this ashram, and he was just this wonderful, wonderful influence on his life. But there's other people that maybe, they're good spiritually, but they're not the best material people. There's preceptors that caused so many people to quit because they were just obnoxious and they didn't rise up to the challenge. I mean, it's a hit or miss type of thing. But these preceptors aren't considered a priest class, and they're not necessarily experts, and they're not there to give you advice on a material level. They're there to give you a sitting. They're there to connect you with God through these sittings. And even if the preceptor goes asleep or isn't thinking about the sitting in the right way, the sitting still happens. It's a guarantee of the system. It happens through, it happens on a spiritual level. So even if the preceptor isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, you still get a sitting, because that's how the heartfulness system works. It's one of the wonderful, like it's a foolproof aspect. You'll get the spiritual sitting and the cleaning that you need, but the preceptors are supposed to, do things. They're supposed to use their will force to clean you and, to be there for you during the sitting. There's certain things they're supposed to do, but even if they don't, you still get the sitting, right? And so some of the preceptors are better than other ones. And, it's just the luck of the draw. I had a great preceptor, but the guy had lots of, emotional problems and kind of neurotic, and a lot of people didn't like him, but he was great for me. He did, wonderful service to me. But the main purpose of what I'm saying here is that you are now on a spiritual path, and you have some responsibility to be positive and be confident. Doubt, Babaji used to always say, doubt poisons the will, and stop looking for validation in the material world. Like right now, if you're a new person doing the heartfulness system, the first thing you have to do is the system good? Does the system deliver what it says? Not because I say it does, not because the system says it does, but does it deliver for you? Does it work for you? Is it helping you? The system needs to prove itself to you, and the master of the system as well. And once you say, all right, this is good for me. I know this. This is, once you've made that decision, you've made that choice, and because in the beginning it's just a feeling out process. And then once that happens, then you dive into it, you learn more about it, and you stop, beating yourself up. And I mean, false humility and all these things, thinking that you're gross when you're not. I mean, those are all, self-absorbed type of egotistical things, right? That's not the heartfulness system is. It's deepening your understanding. You're going to make mistakes. Even the masters of the system, in one of Babaji's Whispers of the Brighter World message, said the masters make mistakes. Every spiritual master made mistakes. Jesus, Buddha, right? Krishna, all these guys, Muhammad, and many that you don't know about. They're human beings and they make mistakes. Even though the religion tries to tell you otherwise, human beings make mistakes, and we all make egotistical decisions and things. People get emotional and, whatever. I mean, I've seen it happen with people I consider saints, even with the masters of the system. But that doesn't mean, oh, wow, you're not perfect, so I'm quitting. Well, you're going to quit on your family. You're going to quit on all the people in your life that aren't perfect, right? I'm quitting on you because you showed that you're a human being and you have some imperfections. That's why people say, well, they don't like some of the things Daji said about COVID, right? Some of his views on it. And I said, he's not a truther, and he delivers what he delivers, right? In terms of his spiritual sittings, in terms of the heartfulness system, the transmission and the cleaning, he does his job. He does what he's supposed to do, right? Whether you agree with his views on certain things doesn't matter. Like, that's not important. You're not going to agree, like people say all the time here, I don't agree with 100% of what you say. And so, part of it is understanding that there isn't going to be the pat on the back and the material validation, and the people who are trainers and preceptors aren't there necessarily to answer your material problems or your concerns or things like this, whatever it might be, because they're human beings with their own struggles. They're there to give you sittings. They're there to clean your heart and provide transmission and give you a framework and understanding of some of the teachings of the system. And if they're not well versed in that, well, then you just read the literature yourself, right? But Master Charji, who was just this, pristine, wonderful person, somebody with, I wouldn't say OCD, but was a perfectionist. And he was really good at doing the heartfulness system. And he wrote in his diary quite often that he felt like the most unspiritual person in the world. Like, he said it quite often. Like, I think I've read that maybe 6 or 7 times. He wrote that. He felt like he was not spiritual at all, right? And he became the master of the system. And so, it's something where you just keep on trugging along, right? You just, punch the clock and you move forward and you ride the ebbs and flows and things. And, and you got to find your motivation from within. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pouring from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.